Hello everybody, it's Bella Malloy here, host of Seek Travel Ride, and welcome back to another midweek episode of the podcast. These episodes share what it's like for you, our listeners, during your bike adventures, and is my way of keeping your stoke and fire fueled up for bike travel. This week we've got listener Laura Kelland-May sharing a bit about herself and her journey into bike travel. But before we hear from Laura, I want to share some responses that I got recently when I posed a question on my Instagram account. If you're not following us there, by the way, what are you doing? Our account there on Instagram is called Seek Travel Ride. So I posed a question, and that was, if you could take a 4-week bike adventure, where would you go? Now, I got inundated with answers, and I'm going to shout them all out here. The first one was from cycle_run_books. And you said Japan. Previous podcast guest M. Hulbert, you said Nepal or Cambodia. Road to Adventure Sean. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your screen name right. It's either Road to Adventures Ian, Road to Adventures Cyan. Anyway, you have said Norway. Surge on a bike. You have said Sydney Opera House to Uluru. Race to the Rock 2025, which will give me 10 days to recover. I love that. Another previous podcast guest, AnAdventure.de. You've said Iceland. Again, that's right, Anne, because that's where you went for your very first adventure. Gravel_Odyssey_Sweden. You have said the Alps and Dolomites. You're obviously looking for some mega climbs there for 4 weeks. Holly_Holly. You have said Mongolia. Oh my gosh, that is a country that is very high on my bucket list, Holly, especially after seeing Claire Wyatt adventure there. I absolutely love those big open landscapes. Big weather patterns too though, right? B_on_bike. You have said Transdinarica. Laura Bikes and Snacks, another fellow podcast guest. And you have said Jordan. I drilled into the why on this and it was all about the food. Love it. Where is Marcelo? You have said in summer it would be Norway, in autumn I would go to Japan, in winter the Canary Islands, and in spring Georgia and Armenia. Ooh, I like this. You know, in an ideal world, Marcelo, you'd be able to take 4-week holidays and bike adventure through all those destinations in a year. Wouldn't that be perfect? Maddie.travels. You've said, oh, I'd love to go to Patagonia. Oh, me too. If you do, Maddie, make sure that you're heading south. Heading north means that you'll have 4 weeks of extremely hard headwinds typically. Jules_Bulls. Another vote for Transdinarica. Andreas_PA_TUR. You have said Argentina. And cheekily said, I could think of no better place than to share a glass of wine. Hacker.bikepacker. Harvey and Rebecca Gross, they're travelling together there. You have said Ladakh, northern India, to climb some of the highest mountain passes in the world. Ooh, you've climbed some pretty big mountain passes on your journey so far, Harvey, but I do love that that is what you thrive on. Disco_Lil, you have said China or New Zealand. And then I have Nick_Laurie, you have said the Pamir Highway. Or the Pamirs have been many a bike adventurer's bucket list dream, I can confirm. And then finally, I've got Izzy.going.places, and you have said France. Oh, great answer there, Izzy. I can 100% recommend France, by the way. Oh, so there we go. A lot of 4-week adventure destinations there for you all to reflect on. And listeners, if you didn't see this question, I'd love to know your answer to it. Where would you go for a 4-week adventure? Which brings me to, where would I go for a 4-week adventure? Well, there were a couple of places there that I thought, oh yes, that's me 100%. Mongolia, for sure. I'd love to go to Japan, and I'd love to go to Nepal. So 4 weeks of bike travel in either of those destinations would suit me down to a T. I think if I only had 10 days, maybe then I would choose the Torino-Nice rally. The route from over the Alps from Torino to Nice. I think that's been on my bucket list for a while now. And also the route de Grands Alpes. So crossing the Alps. I think that would be lovely too. Anyway, some great ideas there though. And I think 4 weeks of bike travel, it's a bit more achievable for a few of us there. It's easier to take 4 weeks out from our lives than it would be to take a few months, half a year, or a few years, like many people I've interviewed on the show. So I'm keen to see, where would you go for 4 weeks of bike adventures? Okay, now it is time to listen to our guest for this week, Laura Kelland-May, share all about her own bike travels. Take it away, Laura.
Hi there, my name is Laura Kelland-May. I'm a cyclotourist, photographer, and equestrian living in Nova Scotia, Canada, and traveling everywhere by bicycle. One of the things I want to talk to you about is how we decided to go cycle touring. My husband, 1984, cycled from England to Greece, and I think he really enjoyed himself, and he wanted to share that with me. The only thing is, it took, 40 years before it actually happened. I'd never been cycle touring before, and never even thought of riding a bike. I'd been riding horses most of my life, and so to think of riding a bicycle was kind of a new experience for me. So we decided to do a 10-day all-inclusive excursion in California, cycling from one B&B to another B&B. You know, the kind where the tour operator takes your luggage from the first stop to the second stop. If you're in trouble, somebody was just a phone call away to help you fix your flat or get you a meal or bring you water if you really needed it. It was lovely. You got on your bike. We rode our bike through the back roads, and they gave us a map. And after 6 hours, we landed at our next accommodation. Our luggage was there. Everything was there when we arrived. Every day, somebody checked up on us, and it was lovely. This was kind of the introduction for me for cycle touring, and our next trip was Portugal. We decided to do 10 weeks in Portugal. Self-supported. We arrived in Lisbon and we headed south to the Algarve. We planned our own route, totally self-sufficient, and we camped along the way, bought our own groceries, and made our way to our next accommodations, wherever it happened to be. So after we got the taste of that, we decided that this was kind of the life that we wanted. We're tired of the cold winters in Canada, and we thought, spend 6 months somewhere warm in the southern hemisphere, and then 6 months back in Canada, where I could continue on judging and stewarding at horse shows and living nearby where I needed to go to my horse shows, and then 6 months traveling via bicycle. During the cold winter months in Canada, we'd go to the southern hemisphere, somewhere warm where we could ride our bikes and travel. So we decided to sell our farm of 30 years, pack up our stuff, and travel. We decided to go to the southernmost tip of South America, Ushuaia, in Argentina, and cycle north to see how far we got. Looking back, I realized this was a trip of a lifetime. During it, however, was a bit of a shock for me. I was in shock because we rode through the Andes, and our first night, we stayed in an abandoned cabin. That's the first time I thought, wow, I'm really doing it. We're really doing it. After planning and reading about bike touring and bike packing and going out and doing this stuff, I'm actually doing it. I'm riding my bike. I'm sleeping in a tent, and I'm living off my bike. Keep in mind, I'm not 20, 30, 40, or 50 years old. At that time, I was pushing 60. Now I'm into my 60s. Our trip was beautiful. The scenery was amazing. And so many adventures. Every day was an adventure. For example, getting extorted by the bus driver in the middle of the night. We decided to pick up our bikes, put them on a bus, and go to the next town via bicycle just to see more of the country. And to get there, we needed to take a bus. The bus came by at midnight. And the bus driver said, if you want to put your bikes, which were packed up, bundled up into mini parcels, taken apart, broken down into very small packages, smaller than a suitcase or just as small as a suitcase, he wouldn't let them go on the bus unless we paid extra. And I can remember seeing Bob counting money out into the hand of the bus driver in the beam of the headlight of the bus so that he would put our bikes on the bus. It was a little bit tense, but it got done and it was worth it. Another adventure seemed like every day we were having trouble getting money from the bank. One day after a particularly long ride, it was around 100 kilometers, we decided that we wanted to, after spending many nights in abandoned buildings and campgrounds and buildings along the way, we decided to get a hotel, and we wanted to go to the bank to get some money to pay for the hotel. Bob went to bank number 1, no money. Went to bank number 2, no money. Bank number 3 also spit out his bank card, and by this time I was on the verge of tears, so stressed out that we were not going to get any money or be able to get any money, or that the bank was going to eat his bank card. And it was either that the bank didn't accept our debit or Visa, or there was actually no money. So bank number 4, Bob went in, came out and said no money, to which I burst into tears. And then he laughed and said, "Just kidding." And he was holding a handful of money in his hand. The turning point of our trip for me was when my mind shifted from a daily routine to a traveling mindset. It was a series of abandoned buildings, campgrounds, and even an abandoned police station. Each day we would get on our bike, plan to go to our next accommodation. Sometimes it was an abandoned campsite. Sometimes it was abandoned hotel, abandoned police station, whatever we happened to find along the way. We used an app called iOverlander that listed different places, safe places that you could park, camp, or take refuge if things were going bad. But this particular abandoned hotel was the time when I knew I had changed, that everything seemed to shift. I knew I was going to be okay, and that we, my husband and I, Bob, would be okay and be able to solve the challenges that we faced. After the first week, overnighting in an abandoned hotel along the route, I remember thinking, oh, jeepers. This particular abandoned hotel was at one time probably a very nice hotel, but now it was a derelict building falling down in the middle of a sheep field. We slept on the floor, we put our sleeping bags and our mats and set up our camp inside this building. There was leaves on the floor, dust, rocks, dirt. It was totally abandoned and derelict, but it kept us out of the wind and kept us out of the frost. It was the defining moment for me because it represented the shift from the daily regular routine of waking up, breakfast, doing the things that I do during the day, and then supper, and then back to bed again, to getting up out of wherever we happened to be for that night, not knowing where we're going to be during the day, facing the problems, solving the challenges that we faced during that day, and then accommodating ourselves and juggling what we were going to do and finding where we were going to stay and being okay with it and dealing with any of the challenges that we faced that day of where we're going to sleep, are we going to be cold, wondering if where or what we'd eat during that day, and where we were going to stay. It was where I got comfortable with the not knowing what was going to happen. For example, riding through a herd of Hereford bulls. I've never done that before, but I did it on this trip. Or getting flagged down by a farmer not speaking any English and us not speaking any Spanish, but him inviting us in for the night. Setting up our tent inside an abandoned restaurant to get out of the wind. and getting picked up by a tractor trailer driving in the driving rain and getting taken to the next town. After finishing our cycle tour, I did a summer in Ottawa where I worked at horse shows, judging and stewarding. Then our next trip was to New Zealand, where we traveled from the northernmost tip of New Zealand through to the southernmost tip of the South Island in New Zealand. It was a fantastic trip with beautiful scenery and a lovely accommodations on the way. It was interesting because our first trip, we were in a different country where we didn't speak the language. New Zealand was very interesting because we spoke the language, so we could talk with people and understand what they were saying to us. The unfortunate thing here is this is where I got hit by a car and bruised my shoulder, but it was a nice trip. Our next trip was Costa Rica, where we cycled through the Nicoya Peninsula. It was absolutely brutally hot. It was lovely, and riding along the beaches and through the jungle was a totally different feeling than any of the other trips that we were on. We are currently planning a trip to Spain and down to Greece for this winter, and we're looking forward to it. We learned that we could deal with any of the problems that we faced, and we can get through these challenges. And really, you don't need a whole lot of stuff to get by. And we also learned that people are generally nice and helpful and friendly. Even if you can't speak their language, you can communicate and show appreciation. Thanks now. Bye.
Thank you so much, Laura. Oh, I absolutely loved hearing your story. I loved hearing how you got into bike travel and how it was your husband that prompted you to take a trip. What I especially liked was the idea of how you sort of got into it. You started out with the tour there, your luggage gets moved from place to place, and then you slowly sort of leveled up from there. But also just what you spoke about, how you had that realization of when it all clicked for you, when you were comfortable with the unknown, when you were comfortable with the idea of where am I ending up today, that everything's going to work out, that you're going to find your own destination on the way. I absolutely love that idea. It's a theme that has come up with many guests of the podcast and something that you have spoken about now as well. I love now that your route to escaping the cold Canadian winter is to take bike travel adventures. And it sounds like this is going to be a pretty strong feature for both you and your husband for many years to come now. So I'm looking forward to scoping out your story more and seeing where your next adventures take you. Thanks so much for sharing all about that here on the podcast. Listeners, if you also want to share your own adventures on the podcast in these midweek episodes, please get in touch with me. Send me a DM on Instagram. My account there is Seek Travel Ride. Or alternatively, hit me up with an email to podcast@seektravelride.com and we can see if we can feature you in these midweek episodes as well. All right, my favourite time of the show, and that is where I get to thank you, my absolute dead set legends of super fans, for buying me a coffee. Each week, these coffee donations keep rolling through, and I especially love reading all your messages of support as well. I have had another anonymous donation come through from someone, and your message is, here you go for all the missed coffees and croissants this summer. And thank you so much, someone. You know me well because I never pass up the opportunity to have a croissant with my coffee if I can. I don't want to sound pretentious, listeners. It's just here where I live in France, coffees and croissants, they actually don't cost too much, so why would you pass up the opportunity, right? And then I have also had Loose Spokes. You have said, thanks for all the inspiration. Well, thank you, Loose Spokes, for your coffee donations there. I'm glad to know that tuning into the podcast is keeping you inspired for your own bike adventures. Now, listeners, if you want to check out loose.spokes on Instagram, you'll see what I'm talking about. And keep me updated with your bike travel. Let's see, maybe we'll get you on the podcast as well. Listeners, if you want to be like loose.spokes and someone and support the show, you can head to buymeacoffee.com/seektravelride. Buy me a coffee, but most importantly, tell me what is it that you love about the podcast and where are you planning for your next bike adventure, whether that's 4 weeks, 4 days, 4 months or 4 years. Hit me up and let me know. And until the next episode, I'm Bella Malloy. Thanks for listening.